You're listening to Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on another episode of Pitch Talks. You know the score by now. We're the podcast which gives you insights and advice on how you can work in sport from the people who are living and breathing it every day. Today is no exception, as we welcome James Green, TV presenter, sports reporter and journalist, commonly known for his work on Sky Sports' popular morning shows from Good Morning Transfers. Whilst you'll also learn about how to prepare for these calibre of shows, you'll also get a great message on why it's never too late to change your career.
Welcome to Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
So James, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure.
We'd always like to kick off these episodes with understanding where the passion started for you. Was it something personal, from studying sports development at university to getting your first job? What was it about sport presenting that you just wanted to get involved in?
Do you know, it was sport in general, to be honest. Ever since I was younger, I was just sports mad. And, if you look back into your childhood, all my childhood memories are sport-based, whether that's playing a little bit of snooker on a set-up snooker table on top of a table, or tabletop football that you get for Christmas, or a little dartboard. Like, everything was sport-based. Every present I got as a kid was sport-based. I just found myself just constantly watching it. What was funny, actually, years and years ago, when my parents moved out of their family home and moved to a retirement home, we went through all my old stuff, and there's like old diaries. And in the old diaries, it was just me talking about football. And it's me talking about Paul Merson and Alan Smith. I spelt it with 2 F's on the end. Obviously, my spelling wasn't great back then. It probably isn't much better now. But it just showed me what I was like as a kid. I was always sports mad. So whatever happened in my life, I kind of knew from an early age that one thing I wanted to do was work in sport. In what capacity at that point, I had no idea whatsoever.
So what was it about being in front of the camera, presenting, that made you feel like that was the career that you wanted to go down to when you were getting older?
Do you know, it's interesting because I speak to a lot of people in the industry as well, and so many had a passion for it from a young age, and they always kind of saw themselves in front of the camera. That really wasn't me. It wasn't something I aspired to. I didn't think about it, if I'm honest with you. I didn't think whether that would be a job that I would do. I never really kind of went down that path, so to speak. And then after university, I'd got a full-time job in for Power League five-a-side football centre. This was just a normal job I was a general manager of, honestly, guys, I can tell you, one of the roughest power leagues known to man. The amount of fights and stuff I saw down there, oh my goodness, it was an experience and a half. And I realised quickly I didn't want to be there much longer for the risk of my own safety, I think. But I actually, years ago, I went on a reality TV show, and I didn't go on there to be famous or anything like that. I went on there for an experience, and I came off this show and loved the experience, and then got given a couple of opportunities to go around to a few places and like stand on stage and do some stuff on stage. And then I got some opportunities to host and introduce some bands onto stage. And it was at that point that I started to realize, actually, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy being on stage and actually like hosting and presenting. And I thought, okay, this could be the moment. And it was from there that I started to, I guess, speak to a few more people. I got a few opportunities on some very, very low-grade casino shows on very popular channels such as 863 and 869, I think they were. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of it. You would have done. Very, very popular. Or what happens for most people, they're scrolling up to further channels ahead and unfortunately stop by and stumble on us. But that was my first experience in presenting, and that was it. It was a really basic show, but it was live, and I was live for 6 hours a day. And the experience you get from doing that, even though it was, as a show, it wasn't exciting, it wasn't great or anything like that, but the experience of live TV really stood me in good stead, and it made me realize that that's what I want to do in the future. That
really nicely builds me on to my next point, actually, about talking about your first couple of presenting roles you did, and like you said, entertainment shows, and then getting into the sports scene with the International Cricket Council. What was it like for those first couple of roles, being in front of the camera, and How did these experience help you prepare for the future in terms of, skills that you picked up?
A good question. It's all about experience, and something I encourage all younger people to do is get experience. The great benefit about being young now and aspiring to be maybe in front of the camera now is that you can record yourself anywhere, and you've got platforms to put it on. You can put it on YouTube. We didn't have YouTube back when I was starting out. It wasn't around, so we didn't really have those digital opportunities that you see today. So for me, it was building from whatever opportunities I had and trying to just learn and develop while I was there as well. And sometimes I would try new things out. I would maybe speak to the producer and say, look, I want to try doing this. And that actually gives you more of an insight into how shows run and how shows work. It gives you, I guess, certainly more experience on the production side behind the camera as well, in preparation to what goes out in front of the camera. So that was really crucial for me. And it's something I've always followed up and always been interested in. But yeah, so I moved from the casino channel. I actually moved to ITV, another roulette show, actually, ironically. So a bit of an expert in the casino world, not an expert when I go to the casino, I might add. That's for sure. Many losses back in the day. Gamble responsibly, of course. But the ITV one was actually, it was nice because that was a nice step up. So instead of a 6-hour live show, I was an hour and a half live, and you're on ITV. Now, ITV1, regardless of what time you're on, is still ITV1, and you still at times inherit really big audiences. So that was a big step up. Ironically, I got recognized more from that than anything else I've ever done in my life. The amount of people who stop me go, hey, you lost me 20 quid the other night. I mean, not my fault, obviously. So look, I was always learning. But the one thing that you always had to do, and I always had to do, and still have to do to this day, is hustle. You're constantly hustling. You're constantly on the lookout for new work. You're constantly looking to build your client base and to reach out to people. You're constantly monitoring websites to see if people are posting jobs. We're fortunate enough on, say, Twitter, for example. There's certainly a couple of really good people who post media jobs. There's a media mentor, and there's a friend of mine, Gary Taphouse, as well, who always posts media jobs. And checking all those websites can really help you. And it helped me. I landed a job with the ICC, so the International Cricket Corporation, or what is it? Corporation?
Council.
Oh my goodness me! Absolute mind blank. Can we cut that bit out?
Of course,
I'm joking. Leave it in. Yeah, God, goodness me! I went blank then. And I actually got that job through one of these sites that posted something on Twitter. And I applied for it and went for an audition and got the job. Now I got to present and help produce 37 episodes for the Cricket World Cup, which was unbelievable. It was an amazing experience. It was relentless. It was day in, day out, literally embracing myself into what was going on within that World Cup to make sure that my knowledge is as far ahead as I possibly can, bringing ideas to the table. We had a really small team. There was only 3 of us. But it was a fantastic experience. And look, what I'd say for the early experiences is just it builds your confidence. It builds your confidence for what will hopefully come in the future.
Just on that role quickly, were you stationed out in Australia and New Zealand for that World Cup?
Oh, you had to go there, didn't you?
I'm sorry.
Do you know what? I was devastated because when I booked the job, I first thought, oh my goodness, am I going out there? This would be amazing. No, I was in an office in London, in a basement office, in a room that they had a meeting room, and they transformed it into a little studio. So sadly not.
Well, apologies for going there.
I'm really depressed now.
To try and move away from that as quickly as we can. Obviously, you've worked in a plethora of different roles in and out of the sporting world. I wanted to just sort of see what the biggest difference for you was, or that you'd found from working within sport and in the job roles outside of sport.
Really good question. Look, I've worked in a lot of entertainment-based shows that I would say doesn't push you as far, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some amazing presenters in entertainment. Of course there are. Look who's on ITV. Your Anton Dex, your Dermot O'Leary. They're utterly brilliant at what they do. But entertainment-based is, you don't necessarily have to have a knowledge for that subject, so to speak. If If it's hosting X Factor, okay, they know everything about what's going on in X Factor. But if you're presenting in, say, football, you need to know everything that's going on in football. You can't take shortcuts. And certainly anymore nowadays, with how social media is, you get found out. And I've seen it before, and I've seen, I won't mention it. I'm not going to mention the guy's name because I don't like to speak down on anyone at all, but he clearly was, it was a young presenter. He was given an opportunity, not his fault, because you're all taught to say yes to things. Having said that, if you say yes to something and you're on camera, you need to make sure you know what you're talking about, because it can really have a detrimental effect to your future. And I watched this young presenter who was known for entertainment-based shows before, and he moved into a specific sport, and he hosted this specific sport, and he clearly didn't know the sport. And it was really sad to see, but it really showed how brutal this industry can be, because he's never been back again. It was car crash, and you can't cheat. Whereas before he probably thought, oh, well, you know, the script will be there. I can just go off kilter and have a bit of fun and stuff with it. But with specific sports and working in sport, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know the sport inside out. And it's such a competitive industry. If you don't know it, trust me, there's somebody else behind you who knows more, who's reading more, researching more, spending more time on themselves, and they're ready and prepared to take the opportunity if you don't take it. So yeah, I think it was a tough lesson there, but I think that's the difference for me. That's really, I've made the change, but I actually enjoy that side, and I'm really sad. I love my research. I'm a massive geek, and I love doing the research.
Do you think it helps that you do have a passion, and you've always had a passion for sport, that then you can go into that level of research?
100%. 100%. The difference is, so for example, if I'm working for a corporate client, and I have quite a lot of corporate clients, and so I'll watch what I say because they're great and I love them and I love what they do. But it's in an industry that I'm really not interested in. So when I'm preparing and learning my script, it's so much more difficult. And when I'm doing the research, it takes double the time. It's a lot harder to do because you've really got to try and almost teach yourself what's going on. Football, cricket, it's a joy, and I love it. And so, like, if it's I'm out doing a non-league game or something, I love picking up the phone, speaking to like the club secretary, having a chat for half an hour, asking him questions about the history of the club and the current state of the club, what's happening off the field as well as on the field. I love it, and I get a buzz from it, and I find it so fascinating and interesting. So yes, there is that huge difference. And I guess that's what it comes down to. You've got to follow your passion, and what you're passionate about, it will come out when you're on camera as well.
You're listening to Pitch Talks.
James, we obviously mentioned about some of the gigs that you've done in terms of presenting in the entertainment shows, and we've just done a little bit of comparison there between entertainment and sport. But I want to refer to something that I saw you wrote about, and that was your decision to go back into education and study for an NCTJ in news and sports journalism at the Press Association. What was the driver in this decision? Because you also mentioned about, you know, you had doubts whether this was the right thing to do at the point of your career. How did you come to that decision?
I'd got to a time in my life where I was doing more of the entertainment-based stuff, and I'd been doing it for, I would say, about 8 years at that point. I was 31 years old, and I wanted to do more, and I felt like I had so much more to give, but I wasn't able to I couldn't find this step. I couldn't find how could I get to that next level? Where was it going to come from? And I was probably a little bit naive to think that it will just come. I was probably a little bit lazy as well to think that I could just carry on doing my thing and something will come up, it will be all right. And I got frustrated, and genuinely I got frustrated with not using my brain as much. My brain wasn't active, and because of that, it was stopping me from reading more. It was stopping me from researching more and trying to develop on myself. So I made the step, and I actually did the course at the same time as BT Sport presenter Jules Breach, who we worked together on an entertainment show for Foxy Bingo, right? Yeah, foxybingo.com. It was great fun, I've got to say. And there was 4 of us on that. And one of the presenters, he's now, he presents on Talk Radio. Jules is obviously now headlining BT Sport Score. She's doing absolutely everything. And then one of the other girls is on QVC, and she does some work with BT Sport as well. So between us, we've all kind of gone on and progressed. It's been a nice journey. But yeah, so back to it. And me and Jules spoke, and we both were at that point where we really wanted that step up in our careers. And we both felt like we were ready to make it. And we'd spoken to a few people in the industry, and they'd said that, in particular, Sky Sports News, that they weren't taking anyone on at present now without a journalism background. And it was a really big thing that they decided to do, to change it up, and they wanted serious journalists. So Sky was always a dream of mine. So I thought, well, this is it. You've got to do it. And I sucked it up, a year of my life, studying nonstop. But again, it was like what we were talking about earlier, Sam. Whether you're passionate about it, it's fine. And I was passionate about it. So it wasn't like in school where you just, get me out of this classroom, where I'm sat at the back throwing paper at people. Instead, I'm the one right at the front of the classroom, teacher's pet, doing all my homework, just like a massive geek. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And honestly, Mitch, it was the best thing I could have done. It really was. It has changed. It's changed my life completely.
This is Pitch Talks.
I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with the situation that you found yourself in, you know, as we said, about doubting whether this was the right move. You're at the stage of your career where you are getting work in presenting that you do enjoy, but you just always had something there that just wasn't right, but just something that you wanted more. Perhaps there's also a big influence, like we said, with social media and external pressures, like that image that you're portraying to other people. Like, will they look at you, you know, differently if you're already changing your career so early on? So what advice would you give to those people who are, you know, perhaps they're in a career, they want to change their career, preferably going into the sports industry, but they're worried about all these other little factors? What would you say to them?
Yeah, great question. Well, I actually did a mini documentary series with Discovery Channel last year. It just got released this year recently. And one of the episodes we did was on mental health, and actually a link between creativity and mental health. And I was speaking to a doctor who was talking to me about social perfectionism. And it's this theory that we think other people think of us in a certain way. Now, those people probably don't, but in our minds, we think that they're thinking that. And this is a big problem. And this is a common problem and a common theme I've had speaking to a lot of younger people, speaking to people my age as well, still go through struggles with social media and this strive for social perfectionism. Ultimately, perfection does not exist. Right. Let's be clear here. There's no perfect scenario. There's nothing that is perfect. So we shouldn't strive for perfection, so to speak, because we can't ever get there. But what you've got to do is make sure you don't cheat. You put in the hard work and you put in the graft. Now, the advice I would say is just ignore what anyone thinks on social media. Ignore your thoughts on what other people are thinking. Focus on what you're doing. That's the most important thing. You're number one. You're the priority. Do the work yourself. And as long as you're proud of what you've done and know that you've left no stone unturned, then that's all you can do. And that really is all that anyone can ask of anybody. And if you do that, though, success will come. But it's just about switching off those thoughts, because it's tricky. It's really, really tricky. It's hard. Look, I still see it. You know, when I'm still looking always at opportunities and speaking to people. And you know, you go on Twitter and you see someone else and you go, oh, he's doing well. Oh, look at him working on this project, that project. We all question what we're doing, but all you've got to do is look at yourself and go, are you doing enough? And I almost guarantee 99.9% of the time you're not doing enough. Trust me, there's an element of luck and fortune, of course there is, but there's always something more you can be doing. Now, whether that's reading another article a day, whether that's reading more books, whether that's studying more, researching more, practicing your trade, filming yourself more, producing some segments, writing some scripts, whatever it might be, there is always something you can do. And that, for me, is always the key. You do that and you spend more time on yourself than worried about what other people think, you'll be better off.
I think that's great. Some great personal advice as well as professional advice. I just wanted to see if there was anything that you've got goal-wise, even if it's long-term, that you want to maybe tick off the sort of the career bucket list.
A great question. I think you've always got to set goals. always along the way. It doesn't have to be, ridiculous ones. It can be really real achievable ones, or it could be some that are quite far out, but it's something to strive for. As I mentioned earlier, Sky was always a dream. It was what I wanted to do. So to be able to work on Sky Sports News was just amazing. It was great for me. But yes, there's got to be a next goal. There's got to be the next step. And for me, I would love to have a regular show, whether that's 3-4 times a week, something regular that I can build up and make my own, can help produce it as well. I would love the opportunity to do that. As regards sporting events, traveling, I'd love to work on the Olympics. I'd love to get anywhere where I can get out of this country and go somewhere. Australia, New Zealand would be all right.
I think everyone's like that now, aren't they? Just wanting to get out of the country.
I think we are. But yeah, look, I've been lucky in my life to travel so much with work. I really have, and see some amazing places, meet some amazing people. But yeah, any opportunity to travel, whether it's a 3-month trip, whether it's an Ashes tour, something like that would just be amazing to cover. I think that's probably where my next goal is sitting. And we'll see. The hard work needs to continue, and hopefully we'll get there. You never know.
You're listening to Pitch Talks.
You just mentioned there actually about some of the awesome experiences and some of the projects that you've been working on since, before and after you finish your course. I've got an idea here, like some of the ITV entertainment show that you've been doing for 6 years, working with UEFA and Kia for the Europa League campaign, and then obviously reading some paper reviews on TalkSport, some awesome positions and opportunities there. So now I'm going to put you on the spot. Looking back over these experiences, what's been your greatest moment?
Oh, wow. God, you have put me on the spot. God, the people before me didn't warn me about this. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. God, my greatest moment. Wow. Great question. I'd tell you what, I'll say one of them. I mean, getting the opportunity at Sky was pretty damn special. I would certainly say, look, I had an interview, a screen test, to be given the opportunity to work on the transfer shows, which was amazing. It really was. That was, I guess, the accumulation of a lot of hard work to get to. It felt great. But there was one job I did, I think in particular, and it was part of the work with UEFA and Kia I did for the Europa League. And I was working for this company, and I originally wasn't booked to be the presenter for it. And I'm not going to lie, it irked me. Right. I was really annoyed, and I was annoyed because I was working for the company behind the scenes. I thought this was just perfect for me. I knew I could do a great job. I knew I could do the scripts and produce it as well, so I could help out a lot. But for various political reasons, that I wasn't picked to do it. After a couple of episodes, I realized actually maybe James would be me. I would be right for it. And I got given the opportunity, and I promise you, I've never worked so hard in my life because I wanted to prove to them, yes, you did make a mistake. Yes, I am good at this. Yes, this is what I can do. But one thing I did with them that was great all round. It's more like it's not just the on-camera stuff. Actually, it's we were doing this show, and we were traveling around Europe a lot for the Europa League. So we were looking at different clubs to go and visit. Now, one of the clubs popped up, and it was Austria Vienna. Now, we didn't have a relationship with Austria Vienna at all. We had no relationship, no communication whatsoever. So I went out of my way and I hunted down on LinkedIn people who worked at Austria Vienna. Honestly, must have sent 7, 8, 9 messages and got a couple of replies and got put through to the right person, had a phone call, explained what we were doing, and they were so welcoming. It was unbelievable. And not only did they invite us to the stadium to do their filming, they invited me to go to their training camp in Turkey to go and do some interviews with players, to film them training and to be around the squad, right? And they never usually media isn't really, training camps they're quite wary about. They like to have their moment and their time together. They opened the doors, they invited us down. And when I went back and told the bosses what has been agreed, they just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that we'd managed to do that. And I was so that was such a proud moment that shows the hard work, the graft, the research, and not being afraid to just connect with people and contact them and ask a question. That's the joy with LinkedIn now. And again, advice to anybody out there right now, use LinkedIn. It is so valuable because you can find almost anybody on there and anybody who is a decision maker within a company. And if not, they might point you in the right direction of one. And always, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen, they don't reply. No problem. You haven't lost anything.
You're listening to Pitch Talks, bringing you the game.
So far on Pitch Talks, we've been chatting with James Green, learning all about his first steps into his career, the early presenting gigs, and the all-important lesson into following your dreams, even if it means going back to education and learning. James, once again, you touched upon something that I now want to come on to, and that's the role that you're doing now as a reporter, mainly for Sky Sports. At the time of recording, we're a couple of days away from deadline day. Probably one of the busiest times to be a football reporter, I can imagine, with the transfer window and anything that could happen at any given moment. One of the things that we love most about deadline day, of course. What does a typical day look like in planning for a deadline day?
I'll give you an insight into, certainly give you insight into a year ago and when I first started on the show, and how it would work is we would get in. So our show would be on, was it 9 o'clock last year or was it 10 o'clock? Might have been 10 o'clock. We were in at 6 a.m. So 4 hours before, we're in at 6 a.m. We have a meeting. We discuss what's going on, what stories are out there. Was there anything late last night that came in that we would cover? So we'd all go around the table. We'd all obviously have had a look, hopefully, and maybe somebody's got a contact somewhere that's heard something else, or maybe someone's got an interview set up. One of the guys on there, Mark McAdamy's great. He's got a good relationship with like Harry Redknapp. So he often would go, right, I think Harry's available. So we'd try and get Harry involved in the show. So we'd do the prep from like 6 o'clock. There was 2 producers working on it who did a fantastic job scripting it all and working out, right, this is what we're going to do. In this section, we're talking about United. This section, we're talking about this player, etc., etc. While all that's going on, you've got a team of reporters and a news desk who are out there gathering news, speaking to their contacts, ear to the ground. Honestly, it's a machine at Sky Sports. It truly is a machine. Until you're involved in it, until you sat there, you kind of don't realise. I guess we take it for granted. We watch Sky Sports News, we just take it all for granted. What was funny, though, when I started it, and the amount of people that asked me, let us know. If you hear anything, let us know. I kept on saying to them, honestly, you will know when you see it on the screen. I will know when I see it on the screen. And literally, that is it. It doesn't travel through the office first. As soon as that news is in and it's verified, it's up on the screen. It's breaking news, and that's it. And then there'll be a reporter out who might be talking about it. I mean, it is just a machine how they work. It really is. And deadline day, it's a lot of fun. It's just there's a real buzz about the place on deadline day. You've got obviously reporters scattered about. Might be a bit trickier come lockdown time, so we'll have to see what happens this week. But it's in the studio again, it might be different this year, but last year there was such a buzz. There's people everywhere. We were having a meeting because all the meeting rooms are being reused. We ended up having a meeting room in the kitchen, but then we were filming some behind the scenes stuff while we were preparing. I mean, there was presenters everywhere. Jim White waddles in, and it's just a great feeling. It really is. And it's why not get excited about something like transfer deadline day? Let's be honest. We know that a lot of it, sometimes there's not much happening, especially in January. It's a little bit dull. And then now in the summer, people are starting to do their business a lot earlier. But why not get a bit of excitement? And I think for football fans, it's great fun.
Do you have your own network of sort of Sky sources, or is that other people? And are you looking to sort of try and build your own network of contacts as well to try and, I don't know, help the machine, as you put it, but also gain sort of a leg up as such?
As a reporter, yes, 100%. You've got to try and try and get as many contacts as you possibly can, and build those relationships. It's no point in just having someone's number if you actually haven't got a relationship with them to be able to call them out of the blue and say, oh, is anything going on? It does require a lot of work. That's something, certainly from a personal point of view, I definitely can improve on. I could definitely do more. I could definitely venture out more, speak to more people, get in touch with more people, try and build that network. Because, obviously, yes, at Sky, they've got sources everywhere. It's like I said, it's unbelievable. But their sources have all been built through years and years and years of doing it. So, within clubs, people change, personnel change all the time. So it's about building and forging those new relationships. So for me, it's a lot of it is looking back on my past, looking to see who I've worked with in the past, looking at my friend space as well. It's amazing. A friend of a friend might work for someone. One of my friends, a good friend of my friend, is the goalkeeping coach at Norwich City. Now we've been out a few times, so actually we get on really well. But having built that relationship up, I had a bit of an insight into some dealings at Norwich. So I got a few exclusives in, certainly last year when they made a couple of signings towards the end. And I had a great night out with James Maddison once as well. Oh, he's a good lad. I like him. So things like that, though, is definitely important. And for anybody who's aspiring to be a reporter, 100% build that network base, build it as much as you can, build those relationships. That is the best advice anybody could get, because it will stand you in good stead moving forward.
Last one from me on this subject. I believe you did West Ham's training ground on one of the transfer talk. Obviously, you must be glad that majority of it takes place inside the training complex, where you haven't got fans behind the cameras potentially waving objects that might be a little bit non-PC, shall we say. But how does that differ from being in the studio, apart from obviously the location and everything, and how quickly do you get news? Is it still the same process being fed to you from Sky, or do you actually potentially go in and speak to the coaches and the players and etc.?
Yeah, great question. Do you know what? I'd love the fans to be there myself. I really would. I think that's part of it, and I think that's something that transfer deadline day misses. I really, really do. I think the fans make it, maybe not waving certain objects behind, but it's fun, and that's how transfer deadline day, I think, should be. It's almost where football for 24 hours takes a bit of a break from being a serious business organisation, actually has a bit of fun. I really do, and I wish we get back to that, and I hope at some point we get back to that. I really do. As regards for reporting outside it's very different. So, for example, I've been sent to West Ham, Bournemouth, Arsenal, a bit of Tottenham, all over the place, really. So with West Ham, it might be a press conference. So I'll be there to do the press conference for David Moyes, as it was last year. And in that recording that you saw, you'd often do, before the press conference, you'll do a bit to camera, and you'll do a piece about current state of West Ham, what you're looking to find out from David Moyes today. And then sometimes after the press conference, either they'll bring you the press conference, or you might do a piece afterwards about what he said. But it all requires preparation, because what I find fascinating, always did find fascinating, when you look at Sky Sports News and look at these reporters on camera, they never make a mistake. They're just like flow, 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 flow. No no arms. And I was fascinated by that. And what it was, and the key is because they all prepare. They all prepare their script. So, for example, I go down to West Ham and I'm on the train on the way, or I spend the morning, I'm sat there going, right, I know what's coming up. This is what I want to say. And I'll prepare a script, and I'll write a script for myself. And then you just run it over in your head. So it's in your head, you know the flow, you know what you got to talk about, and that's it. And then you deliver it to camera. And then if there is any breaking news as such, then usually someone will pop in your ear, unless you've heard something while you're there and thereabouts. Because bear in mind, certainly at press conferences, there could be 20, 30 different journalists from different organizations who have contacts everywhere, and you all talk. So you all kind of know what's going on. So look, the main thing is, when you're in those situations, it's build relationships with the other journalists as well, because they're really important, because they might share information with you as well moving forward. So yeah, it's all about building relationships. It really is.
This is Pitch Talks.
Our penultimate question for you, James, and I'm afraid it's probably going to put you on the spot again, But I only say that because just from talking with you today, I can just see how passionate and enthusiastic you are about what you do and what you have done. So that's what will make it quite tricky. But what do you love most about what you do?
I prefer this one, Mitch, if I'm honest. I love the buzz. I love the buzz. I love the excitement. I was having this conversation with my girlfriend yesterday, actually, and I was doing some other work away from sport, and I was finding it really tough to concentrate. And then my phone rings, and I have some sport to do and some a report to prepare, and I just get this energy and this uplift and this enjoyment. And like, for example, tomorrow I'm interviewing a former rugby league player who's now a Hollywood actor. Right. Love it. Love hearing the story. So I love researching his story, where he's come from, his career as a rugby league player to where he is now. And I just got this huge buzz from it. And it's just doing stuff that you're passionate about. That's what I love about it the most, without a shadow of a doubt.
So earlier on, you gave your words of encouragement to those people looking to change their careers. But what would be great to round up what's been an awesome episode is if you could provide any final piece of advice for those who are perhaps looking to get into sport, presenting, reporting, or just trying to achieve their dream job. What would you say?
First thing I would say is work harder than the next person. I would start with that. I do a lot of talks when I go to UCFB as well, quite a bit. Not so much at the moment because of the current situation, but that's the first thing I always say is work harder than the next person. Because certainly in sport, if you don't, somebody else will. And the one thing we were talking about earlier about, going on social media and seeing what other people are doing, you can always see those who are really on it, those who know so much more about their subject. And the reason why they know so much more, because they're working harder and they're researching harder and they're reading more. And that's where you've got to be. You've got to set yourself apart from somebody else. And I'd always encourage people to ask themselves, what's their differential? What makes them different and better than somebody else? And what sets you apart? And that's so, so important. And you've got to have that. Now, again, I mentioned it before. The advice I would give is you've got to train. You've got to train on what you do. Whether you're a reporter, whether you're a presenter, if you think about like actors or singers don't just go on stage and sing. They do all their training. They constantly are in the studio rehearsing. They're doing all that. It shouldn't be any different for a reporter or a presenter. Anybody on screen is exactly the same. And the fact is, like I was mentioning earlier again about YouTube, you've got YouTube. You can film your own series. You can do interviews. You can interview your friends. And all it is working on your interview technique, working on how you prepare for the interview, how you deliver the interview, how you follow up the interview. It's all these key things that there are always something you can do. And I've had so many conversations with people in the past where they go, I'm stuck. I've done everything. I've phoned this person. I've done everything. And then I could sit there and list about 20 or 30 different things that I haven't even thought about. And it's that you've just got to turn every stone. I think I love that term, but you have to try and find a way to make it work. And I think it's really important, but ultimately it all comes down to hard work. And if you want to ask me what my biggest regret in life is, not working hard enough when I was younger, because I'm 36 now, goodness me, 37 in a couple of months. And if I knew this and had that advice or had somebody tell me that when I was 20, 21 or even younger, I know that I'd be in a much better position now because I'd have worked so much harder. And it's just so important. But put in the graft, put in the hard work, don't give up. And also, if you have opportunities to do volunteering work for a station or any freelancing work like that, then do it. On a CV, it looks so good. I can tell you it looks so good. I've interviewed people for jobs before, young people who have come in, and the standout from someone who's maybe got their own YouTube channel, got their own Twitter account, got a fan channel, have spent 6 months work experience at somewhere. It makes a huge difference. So I'd always encourage young people to do that.
James, we've really enjoyed talking with you today. I think there are so many things that you've touched upon that people will take away from this chat, especially around the encouragement about it's never too late, the hard work. And like I said, when we're talking with you and you're sharing your experiences, the passion, and we can just see how much you enjoy what you do. So once again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories and providing some awesome insight.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Sam. Love what you guys are doing. I think it's fantastic. Keep it going.
Thank you.
Well done, guys.
Thank you. So today we've been chatting with James Green, learning about his career into presenting and reporting, preparing for transfer deadline day, and what steps you can take to begin a similar career. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you leave us your feedback or give us a follow on any of our social channels. So thank you for listening to Pitch Talks, the sports career podcast focused on helping you get into sport.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bringing You the Game by Pitch Talks. For more information on our latest episodes, careers advice, or to even get involved as a guest, get in touch with the team at mitch@pitch-talks.com. That's mitch@pitch-talks.com, or send us a message on any of our social media platforms. Thanks for tuning in. Bringing you the game. All Pitch Talk content is copyright protected. Pitch Talks.